this module, we will outline the steps of the installation and point out any precautions that may exist. You will need to follow the installation steps in the appropriate maintenance service manual. Each printer has a specific set of steps to be completed in a particular order. Make sure that you are following the installation steps in the proper manual, as some manuals cover more than one printer model. When unpacking the printers, multiple people will be needed to move or pick up a printer. The largest of the printers weighs about 620 pounds. Check the installation environment before unpacking the printer. Make sure the doorways that the printer will need to move through are wide enough, and that the floor surface where the printer is to be placed is level. If the printer needs to be located on a different floor of a building, the elevator will need to accommodate the equipment and personnel moving the equipment. Some of the printers are equipped with casters. This will aid in moving the printer to its location. Remove the packing materials from the printer pallet and carefully remove the printer from the pallet. There may be a ramp to remove the printer from the pallet. Remember, the packing materials should be saved by the customer in the event that the printer may need to be returned. Once the printer is in place, you can begin by following the instructions outlined in the maintenance manual. Remove the packing material. With the top of the box removed, the ramp and other packing material can now be removed. Once this is done, the sides of the box can be lifted over the top of the printer. The corner boards are normally strapped to the printer, so these will need to be detached. Next, lift off the plastic bag protecting the printer. To unload the printer from the pallet, the 4 brackets holding the leveling legs in place need to be removed. To detach the brackets holding the legs, you will need a 14 mm wrench or socket, and a ratchet. Once the brackets are removed, the leveling legs will need to be brought up to at least 93 mm or approximately 3.75 inches from the floor to avoid damaging the legs when removing the printer from the pallet. With the F40 and the F60, the printer will need to be lifted from the pallet. Using a 2x4 you can create a step to roll the casters of the printer onto. This will assist with the removal of the printer from the pallet. Remember that the printer should not be tilted more than 10 degrees from straight up, to prevent the printer from tipping over on its side. When removing the printer from the pallet, it should not be allowed to step down more than 30 mm or 1.25 inches at a time. The ramp that is seen in the video is only included with the F90 and F166 printers. Now that the printer is unpacked and set in position, use a level and level the printer using the legs on each of the corners of the printer. This procedure is not outlined in the manual. Next, set the OPC drum using the instructions in the installation section of the maintenance manual. Setting the developer unit will require that the developer mix be placed into the new developer unit. This is done by removing a cover on the front of the unit and taking the developer bottle and distributing the mix across the induction port. Once complete, set the developer unit in the printer. Set the toner cartridge by following the instructions in the manual. Remove any packing materials that are on the transport unit, or other parts of the engine. When installing the F40, F60, F90, and the F166 models, you will be required to connect the power cord, also known as a pigtail, to the printer. Dangerous voltages exist. Please be cautious of the electrical hazards when installing the pigtail to the power terminals. There should be no power present when attaching the pigtail to the terminals in the machine. After they are connected to the printer, you will need to verify the correct connection and voltages using a multimeter to be sure we have 230 volts AC plus or minus 3%. A pigtail is an electrical cable that has a connector on one side of the cable and has 3 wires on the other side. We are going to connect the 3 wires to the printer. Before installing the pigtail to the printer, make sure the power switch is off. Next, make sure the circuit breaker is set to the off position. Also, make sure that the pigtail is not plugged into the socket or receptacle. Before installing the pigtail to the machine, it should be verified that the receptacle or socket that the printer will be plugged into is wired properly. Typically, this is done by the electrician that installs the receptacle. Once this is verified, the pigtail can be installed on the printer. Verify that the power switch on the printer is off, the circuit breaker on the printer is off, and the pigtail is not plugged into the receptacle. The images shown may not match what you will see in the field, but the concepts are the same. The purpose of a strain relief is to prevent the wires in a cable from breaking when the cable is repeatedly bent and twisted. In this case, it also helps to prevent the wires from pulling out of the electrical connections of the printer if the cable is pulled. The strain relief can be made of metal, PVC or plastic depending on the application. The parts seen here are as follows. The body is what is typically installed into the hole in the machine. A nut holds the body in place on the printer. The grommet goes around the cable. This will hold the cable in place once the compression nut is tightened. The nylon washer helps stabilize the grommet so it does not compress too easily. Once the compression nut is tightened, the grommet will tighten and not allow the cable to move in the body of the strain relief. Before feeding the cable through the bottom of the printer, the nut that holds the strain relief needs to be placed around the cable. Install the nut of the strain relief onto the cable, and then place the cable through the hole at the bottom of the printer. Once the cable is placed through the bottom of the printer, the clamp portion of the strain relief is then placed over the cable. There may be several pieces that make up the clamp. Now, the nut on the strain relief can be tightened slightly to hold everything in place. Now that the cable has been placed through the bottom of the machine, the wires can be connected to the terminals. You will see that there are 3 terminals with screws, covered with a clear plastic cover. Remove this cover and loosen each of the 3 screws to accommodate the wires. Once the screw is loosened, the wire will slip behind the square metal washer behind the screw. Once the wire is in place, the screw can be tightened. Repeat this step for each of the 3 wires. The black wire will go to the terminal marked L, the white wire to the terminal marked N, and the green or green/yellow striped wire will go to the terminal marked FG. Next, connect the pigtail to the receptacle or socket and verify the voltage at the printer. Please take care, as power is now present at the terminals on the printer. Do not turn on the printer before performing this step. Connect the red probe of your multimeter to the volt socket on your meter and the black probe to COM, or the common socket on your meter. Next, set your multimeter to read AC voltage. Take the black probe of your meter and place it on the green wire terminal marked FG, and the red probe on the white wire, this is the terminal marked N, and measure the voltage. The voltage across these 2 points should be about 120 volts AC. Again, take the black probe of your meter and place this on the terminal marked FG. Place the red probe from your meter on the terminal marked L, this should be the black wire, and read the voltage on your meter. The voltage should be about 120 volts AC. Now, take the black probe from your meter and place it on the white wire, this is the terminal marked N, and then place the red probe on the terminal marked L, this is the black wire, and read the voltage at these 2 points. The voltage should be about 230 volts AC, plus or minus 3%. This is a range of approximately 7 volts. The voltage should be between 223 volts to 237 volts. If the voltage does not fall within these parameters, contact Level 1 support. Once you have verified that the voltages are correct, you may turn on the power to the printer as outlined in the installation section of the manual. After completing the installation of the printer, conduct a customer training session. Please ask the customer to have the user's guide loaded on a nearby PC. This will require Adobe Reader to be installed on the PC. Please follow the user's guide for the steps for all customer replaceable items, proper use and care of the product. The TSR should perform loading of consumables, to demonstrate to the customer how it is done. Then, the customer should load each of the consumables to verify that the instructions were understood. All questions should be covered at this time, to ensure that the customer is comfortable with replacing the consumables. Extra attention should be given to page counts and replacement of the consumables at the recommended frequency. It is highly recommended that the customer keep a printer logbook of when any customer replaceable units and consumables have been replaced. The customer should log each time they have cleaned the machine, or a customer replaceable part or consumable is replaced. The TSR should log when they have performed preventative maintenance or service on the machine. As a courtesy to the customer, please assist the customer in confirming their print file output is acceptable and matches the intended printed output. If the customer has any issues with their print file output, please route them directly to Microplex Technical Support for further assistance at 877-997-6543, option number 2, or support@microplexusa.com.